Welcome back, you guys. This is Four Guys, One Film, and we're finishing the second part of our Before trilogy, the 3-part episode. And we're so excited to talk about this one. We fell in love in the first one, and this time we might be feeling something a little different.
Something else, something more real.
I think it hurts, but it hits just right. Because
Yeah.
you know that this is
George, why does
more
it hurt?
likely than not. Because it's like, in a perfect world, you want it to work out between them, and it depicts what would actually happen between these two characters.
Well, let's give the listeners a little summary just in case. Before sunrise, they're in their 20s. They meet in Vienna. They don't know who they are. They essentially fall in love within 12 hours, exploring and getting to know each other. And then the final day, they say, "Hey, let's meet up in 6 months because this is how much love, how much of a connection we have." All right. And this film is 9 years later. Did they meet up 6 months later? And the answer is no.
And they make it very apparent as the movie starts. And
I wasn't sure, actually. I was kind of like...
He literally talks about it, and as he's talking about it, he's like, "What's going on?"
All right. So this first scene, right, where he's reading, he's at the fucking, he's a writer. People are there, meet and greet, whatever. And then she walks through the fucking door. I didn't get the fucking sense of like, holy shit, like this is the girl that I've been waiting for fucking 10 years. Like it was more just kind of like, this is they already did meet. And
he's probably just processing it while he's trying to finish his sentence speaking to the people, because imagine like you're at your job, you're doing this, and then all of a sudden like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen.
But he plays it off.
He's playing it off.
Let's unpack. So again, the job truly is the fact. What we're talking about in this case is he wrote a book. He wrote, and he keeps calling it a fiction when he's talking to his readers. He's saying like it could be fiction, and that's what's beautiful about it is if you're a cynic, if you're romantic, if you're in between, anybody can interpret what happened that night, kind of. And that's, it's kind of crazy because we talked about this a second ago, literally after finishing the second movie, is that we have the blessing of not having to have the what if for so long, right?
Waiting.
But like that's probably exactly what people who witnessed it and watched it in real time were feeling like. Did they not? Yeah. What happened?
George was like that. He waited a whole week and he bitched about it. The whole
No, it's been like 2 weeks since we saw the first one.
We got to keep the continuity going.
Right. I'm just kidding.
And no, but you're 100% right, Isaac. He was feeling that, and imagine prolonging what you were feeling, George, for 10 years almost. Like thinking about.
And then this is the movie that you watched 10 years later.
I would have been a little pissed, not gonna lie. I'm glad that we're living in a moment where it's like, oh, they're already out, the trilogy, we can watch it whenever, at our convenience. But I can't imagine being a viewer watching the original one and then it's like, what? That's how it ends?
Like now I gotta wait another 10 years?
Well, did they ever even say they were gonna release another one? You probably didn't even know as a viewer. So it was like, shit, potentially that's literally it.
Especially a casual viewer where you're not like going to talk to the director and asking him what his plans are for this series or anything like that. You're absolutely not going to.
You think the director like knew that he was going to do a trilogy?
I mean, I imagine this is something that has some sort of plan.
I think it was more like the director was kind of like, hey, we released this movie. It had a lot of, engagement. People really enjoyed it, whatever. He's like, let's follow up on it. And then he wrote another script. I don't think it was like pre-planned. Because it seemed like the second movie was kind of like...
Yeah.
Well, he just...
I like it either way, though, because if you think about it, like the way that we talked about, like the fact that in these scenes, that there's like interruptions. Like there's got to be like, they're paid extras, they're background characters, they're actual actors. But the way that you see a guy jogging through a park, you see a woman or a man...
It feels lived in.
Like it feels like, oh, excuse me, sorry. Like you're like, rather than the actors kind of what you would typically expect, be like, hey, get out of my way, extra or whatever. They're apologizing to the extra in the scene because they're realizing like, I'm here having a conversation with the person right next to me and I'm kind of getting in the way of somebody accessing this pathway or whatever. So it feels like you're watching real
One of the things that made it interesting is that it felt like you followed through their whole conversation. There wasn't any cuts. Well, there was, but they were very minimal. I think it's just probably like because of just like different settings.
Yeah, usually in a romance film, I feel like they do close-ups to the actor as they're talking to make it feel like we're close. But to me, I felt like we were much closer just viewing them together, walking side by side.
And I mean, usually in a romance, I think that also aids the whole idea that like when an actor or actress is talking to you, like you can visualize yourself opposite them. Right? Like you're seeing Drew Barrymore talk to you. You're seeing like these actresses or actors talking directly to you in an Adam Sandler movie or whatever. And you're like, oh, that's me. I'm the love interest.
But here we're a fly on the wall essentially.
Yeah,
just watching
I like how we're just viewing it from the outside looking in, and it's not like we're an omniscient. I mean, what was it, omnipotent, whatever the fuck viewer, where it's like we know everything. It's like no, we're watching it as it's happening from
from start to finish. That conversation, we saw it, we experienced it. We could see the emotions that both of them were going through as just like even a third person viewer. It felt like we were a third wheel, watching.
Yeah, like you're a good friend watching this whole dynamic,
Actually, I want to get your perspective, George, because this is your first time seeing the film.
I think we wait towards the end.
No, but I just for this, because this is in the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
But, like, what did you think of Ethan Hawke's character, Jesse, like, when he finally got to talk to her after all? Like, is that what you expected? Did you want more?
No, because I love how much he progressed as a person. Whether it was like, Ethan Hawke growing as an actor, everything developing, because he was so young in the first movie, and he was kind of like, he was playing this arrogant, just kind of like
trying to be cool, a little cocky.
Cool, like fucking leather jacket, just, like, talking about philosophy.
Like, I'm hot shit, bro.
Whatever.
Like, I just finished school.
And then this one, he becomes the optimistic, like, let me look at life positively and how, there's so much beauty in it. And then she becomes the pessimist a little bit.
What's interesting about that is the philosophical aspect of it didn't really change. It was just his viewpoint on the philosophy.
No, yeah, but
I
love that dynamic switched in him, because it seemed like this could possibly happen with someone after 10 years. And then experiencing
not even
as
just
much
after
as
10 years, after having a child. And he talked about
he's a father now.
Yeah, to spoil to everybody, he has a wife and a child, and that's all they explore in the movie, and it is fucking heartbreaking.
No, but I really liked it. I really liked the dynamic that was going on between the two and how he grew and everything. I also really enjoyed the fact that the film as a whole did not change its fundamentals. The directing style stayed exactly the same. It's just a lot of dialogue, a lot of really good conversation. It wasn't like they tried to morph the film into something different. It's like, no, it stayed true to the narrative.
I felt like this one was somehow a bit more intimate. Because we got to see kind of like Celine's home and the way that they interact with other people.
I think it was a little bit more intimate because a lot of they were at different points of their life. It wasn't like
they're in their early 30s. Yeah,
they were in their early 30s. They've already experienced a thing or two, and they're going through it, and now they can actually have a much more, I guess, meaningful conversation instead of just like a very abstract conversation as we saw in the first film. Now I have a question for you guys. I think this is for everybody. After, how would you guys feel if you saw like your significant other after 10 years the same way that Ethan?
What perfect! I'm glad you brought that up.
And not necessarily saying that we had kids or whatever. Like in his like the messy situation, just like you stayed waiting for that one person for 10 years. How would you guys react when seeing Celine or your significant other?
Yeah, I mean I can kind of like I've had something similar to this where I saw somebody I hadn't seen in years.
Spill tea.
I'm not going to go into details, but like Jesse's reaction where he's kind of just trying to keep himself composed and still cool and not really like freak out. Like
he's in the middle of conversation.
He's in the middle of conversation. But like even when he's like, oh, like it's you, like you want to go to the cafe and they're like beginning that conversation. Yeah. It was very real because you don't know where to leave off from him. It's been 10 years. Like, where do you start, right?
Would you hold any animosity? Like, I feel like because
it's hard to because you see this person and like why would you?
I think he did hold animosity
in his eyes
up until the point where up until the point where she's like, hey, like why weren't you there? And she's like,
exactly.
Oh my god, because we see it towards almost the end of the movie when they're in the boat together. He's like, why the fuck weren't you there? Like I understand why you weren't there. But why weren't you?
No.
That's more frustration.
I think that was frustration. But you're right. It was more towards the beginning.
We're jumping ahead. Though.
Like
I feel like we're jumping.
First, whatever, 10% of the movie. It literally, he's like, you can see, he's just like, you know what? I'm no longer upset. I'm just kind of like, I want to know the reason why. Yeah. And then at first, you kind of seem like he's just nonchalant about it because he's like, obviously he's moved on. He literally has a fucking family, kids, everything.
I don't think he hasn't moved on.
No, he definitely hasn't moved on.
No. What I mean, past the hurdle of why she didn't show up. Yeah, that's what I mean by moved on. Not necessarily like there's no feelings, but it's also like
George, I need you to stop yelling.
I'm sorry. I'm getting a little intense here.
I love the passion.
It's like all right, going back to your question, it's like how would you feel at that point? It's like I would probably have feelings of like anger, animosity, these different emotions.
Complicated.
Yeah,
different emotions.
Because it's like, all right, whatever happened, but it's like we you weren't there, and I was, and it's just like,
and he didn't want to admit that.
Yeah, exactly. But then you find out, and then you're like, okay, and then you see his switch. He's just kind of like,
I think the truth of the matter is at first he had those emotions right away, and for the coming years,
he made it very evident. Yeah,
exactly. And then he talks about how, I mean, not to get too far ahead because I do want to. I like the idea of going through this chronologically a bit. He moves on, he has his family, he gets through life, and there's still residual feelings. He makes it very clear throughout the movie that he never stopped feeling things, that he never stopped dreaming, he never stopped hoping, but it no longer became about like anger or extreme sadness. It just became a what if in his life.
Exactly.
And that's where I think that, I mean, I think that's very real, honestly. Like you think about how I always think about the fact that like my parents, for example, they talk about heartbreak. Like my little brother, for example, was, hopefully he never really feels like I'm airing his dirty laundry out on this podcast.
He doesn't listen to
this,
does
he? Him being...
Tell us more about you, Nick.
No. You're getting away from the question, by the way.
I know, right? Yeah,
you're
strained, bro.
I think I would have felt the same way, but what I'm trying to say with this is that I think it's very apparent that, for example, and whether it's my life or in this case I'm using my younger brother who's just barely reaching that kind of adulthood, where you are in a relationship, you're in love, and whether your parents or older adults in your life want to classify it as it's not real love, that's puppy love, that's kid love, you don't know what it means to be truly in love. That's the highest stage of love you've ever felt in your life, and
that's your introduction. Yeah.
And not only that, but because it's your introduction, the heartbreak that follows is some of the most painful heartbreak that could ever happen. I remember in the rockiest stages of my adulthood, and after relationships in which I come from, it's like there's a little bit more of a like, I'll be okay and I can make this work, that you do not feel in your first romances. In your first romances, you don't have experience to fall back on.
It's just raw energy.
Exactly.
Raw emotion.
And so I think that they both in the original film and Before Sunrise talked about the fact that they had been in previous relationships. So I think that helped them ease into and go into this crazy experiment where they stay together, for one night, complete strangers, just talking, falling in love essentially, little by little. But now, as adults, that resentment that could have built from like that relationship not, flourishing into what it could have been, they're in their 30s, they've spent 9 years apart, and so they're like, I don't hold that resentment, I don't harbor a grudge against you, I'm just upset. And then because I really would have liked this to be something.
It's interesting because they hold that memory differently. I feel like Ethan's character Jesse, he's more like to me, holding that memory, like that's hope for me. And for Celine, it was anger because she feels like that was the last time
she talked about she felt robbed.
She
felt like
robbed.
He stole, like he's like, I haven't loved like that.
But here's the thing, she didn't mention, and I think
that wasn't until later. Yeah,
that wasn't until a couple years later when she's like lived life. She's gone through bad experiences with the other partners and stuff, and she read his book and she like relived that whole night. And I think that's where they're a little bit different, because when this happened, when she didn't show up at the train station, we're getting a little bit ahead, but
that's okay.
Like she had other things going on, and then for her life just happened.
Her grandma died.
Yeah, he had the lasting repercussions, and I'm not trying to say who had it worse, right? But it just like you see how he dealt with it because he showed up. He spent money he didn't have.
He put up flyers for her, man. That's so sad.
Yeah.
But do you think he was being real about that, or he actually
I
put
think
up flyers?
so.
I think he was being
so.
real.
No, I know, but like you also look at a lot of the things that he says and suggests when they're talking, and it's just very playful and like fun. So
but I don't know. At that point, he was kind of like pouring his heart out a little bit, and I feel like that was real.
I feel like he said that to make it seem how intoxicated and how angry
well, I think
he was.
similar to how he talked about it.
Maybe to jump on that, maybe he said it to make her feel worse.
Well, I was gonna say, beyond that, similar to what he talked about in his book, it's like it doesn't matter whether he did or he didn't. It matters whether or not you think that was like a romantic cynic. Like it's your perspective on the event, right? So if she looks at that and she sees this as like a depressed guy who should have actually like just let go of the fact that she didn't show up, or if she sees that as a romantic gesture, somebody who not only showed up but was desperate to find a way to try to any length to meet her, hoping that she was just delayed or whatever, and he was just shit out of luck, honestly. Like it's kind of similar, where whether or not he truly did it or not, he showed up. He showed. And we also, I mean, technically you can even question that. Like, it's obvious.
Did he actually show up?
Did he actually show up? Right?
I think he did.
Yeah,
I think
I
agree.
I think I think he was so infatuated with her in that time period that he literally went through leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and I just wonder what that flight back home was like.
Probably
No, but
devastation.
then you go back to it. He was also joking about like, oh, did you meet anyone else while you were here? He's like,
yeah.
I was here for a few days. I met this fucking
This other girl.
And the book is about both of you.
Yeah, and it's like it's a collection of both of those.
But I think he uses comedy a lot, or just like joking around, just
It's
to hide,
to mask
a lot of emotion.
That's my whole point. I'm like, did he
I think-
actually run up and down Paris trying to post the
He
flyers
probably
to
didn't
find her?
run up
Vienna.
and down, but
Well, it wasn't Paris. Sorry, it was where
Yeah.
was it supposed to be?
Vienna.
Okay.
Vienna.
Yeah.
But I still think he did show up, and like, cause you just see, I think that sense of relief when she tells him the reason he didn't go.
And the way that he was frustrated towards the end, like, why didn't you show up? Like on the boat,
Yeah.
that solidifies
and
that. for me.
that actually answers one of the subjects we brought up in the last episode, where we were like, I said something like, maybe in the 6 months either it'll ignite that want to see her again, or it'll fizzle. And it definitely, like, it was probably like just fire for him. Like, I need to see this girl. I need to go back with her
again, because he went through all those obstacles to get across the country, across the world.
He said he lost on like $2,000.
Yeah,
he had to pay back to his dad.
Yeah, and so it's just like he has to. It's like I think for him it was a lack of accomplishment or even just closure. He didn't get any closure.
Oh, okay. So this brings up a question for me. Do you guys think that this is genuine love, or is it something that is so unattainable, so unreal, or just in the spark of a moment, kind
the grass
of
is
like
greener on the other side.
It's a dream.
Yeah, no, it's like, is he really pursuing them being together, or is it the feelings and emotions that they felt in that moment?
10
But in
years ago.
reality, it's like, who knows if they could even fucking be together? Is this even actual love? Is this fucking, like, is it just that instance of like, I can't have this, but it's that scarcity mindset where you're like, hey, because I can't have this, makes me want it even more.
Well, I think
And
if the reality of his relationship as he describes it, I mean, at some point, we're just getting so into these topics, and I'm tired of like tiptoeing around him a little bit. I mean, just be honest.
dive
Say
into
straight,
it, baby.
say straight.
Let's
Be
go.
frank. I'm a bulldoze it. He has been fucked 10 times in 4 years. Okay, so my guy Jesse, his dick is
that what it's
drier
about,
than a motherfucker.
Nick?
Oh yeah,
No.
Is it
he
just
got married. He has a
physical?
kid.
The
There's no more
perspective
sex.
of that's all I heard, to be honest. I don't give a shit about the marriage of the
It's like
kid.
this man.
I
You
was
did
like,
the math, right,
damn,
Nick?
The
How
man,
much
the
was
man
it?
is suffering.
I was
No,
like,
you did
that's
the math. How much was
2.5
it per?
times a year times.
Yeah, this guy was breaking down the math.
He's like, that's once every
Every
5
5
months,
months.
dude. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So my point on that being essentially though that this guy is clearly not in a happy relationship, and I think they talked about they kept going off and saying like, dude, we were so stupid as kids. Why couldn't I have at least just gotten your last name? And that makes me think too. It's like, with your first name, I'll find you. Like in 2023, fuck, with Facebook, Instagram,
Just
Twitter,
say,
Snapchat,
Celine, Vienna,
like
whatever.
Well, literally, yeah. Like on Snapchat, I think you can look at like the fucking snap maps or whatever. So you could probably I don't even.
You could
know.
probably guess her
but
age.
back then, I mean, could you realistically find
No,
someone with
absolutely
first name
not.
and
In
last
the
name?
90s?
Maybe
in a
like
different country.
maybe Yellowbook.
No.
But does a
Yeah.
different country have fucking Yellowbook? Like, I don't know.
Well, you know what, and that's what hurts even more because as they continue their conversation, he realizes she went to NYU while he was also
and
in
the
New York.
conversation about how she was apparently 2 blocks. Like he's like, oh yeah, on the day of my marriage, I swear I saw you. She's like, I lived literally 2 blocks
she was
away
like,
from that.
because he said like
during that time.
third and something. She was like, oh, I was on first.
Yeah,
No, it was.
That was 11.
Oh,
11th and
Broadway.
Broadway,
Yeah,
and,
okay,
and it was
thank
like
you for the
13th and
correction.
Broadway. Yeah, so
Yeah.
something like that. And it's like,
Come on,
holy
Alexis.
shit.
So
But it's
the
like
numbers
that,
were right.
But it's that idea that in the 90s, no, you're 100% right. Like tracking somebody down without having their last name is a whole different ballpark than it is today with social media and everything.
They
And
were
so-
young and naive, which
and-
is
but now-
it kind of plays into that where it's like, hey, if you guys really wanted to make this work, you guys could have done a lot more to actually make it happen. Whether it was like, circumstance, whatever, it's like, oh, some shit comes up, let's reschedule. But it's like, no, they were just like, this is one and done.
Yep.
You either come in 6 months and meet me at the train station, or I don't ever see you again.
The decisions at the time though is I think a reflection of their immaturity because
Yeah,
in their
absolutely.
minds they probably thought, yeah, this is absolutely gonna work. Everything's
There's
gonna be
nothing
just
that
fine.
could
The
get in the way.
romance is gonna bring us
Exactly.
together.
And if not, like they said, I'm gonna find somebody else that gets the spark into me.
Exactly. Like they were already at that point being realistic about the fact that this was kind of like a one night thing. It could fizzle out, so they had that kind of plan B if this didn't work out. But what I'm saying about what you were talking about, George, is that you're 100% right in the sense that, like, you know, the original kind of scenario that they had, you know, 10 years, 9 years ago in the past, compared to now, after all the life that both characters have experienced with their previous lovers, with, you know, Jesse having a wife and child, it's like, I feel like what you're seeing here essentially is an evolution from him just kind of being like honestly, like, what the fuck, man? Like, shut up. You going to show up? What the fuck? Like,
I'm hurt.
To like, oh, that's why he didn't show up. Like, that's real. And it's like, oh my God, like, all these like feelings that were in my head, they're still here. And like, you're showing me like literally why. Like, I don't even have to go off of how I felt about you. I'm looking at you. I'm feeling present tense about you. These exact same feelings. And that's why, like, I mean, I love the way it ends where he's like, you're going to miss your flight. He's like, I know.
You're skipping ahead, bro.
I'm sorry. I'll tell right now, but he's like,
he's bulldozing.
He
it.
knows.
Bulldozing
I
right
am
through.
not going to tiptoe through this shit. This is so fucking good.
All right, well, let's just fucking jump into it.
Okay.
Nick, so would you, knowing what happens now, would you change your mind on going? Because last podcast we talked about how it's like, would you go to Vienna in 6 months? Would you show up? Would you be that person? And originally you said no.
I think
it was a clear no.
It was risky for you. That's
I
what you
think
said.
as a young adult, it's too risky. As a person who's in their 30s with who's not happy in a relationship and who can look back at life, I'd like to tell myself that I didn't always make the decisions that were safest, and that I made decisions with my heart. I made decisions with the intent to love, with the intent to just not like basically regret things into later life, you know. Like, I mean, just the quote I heard myself talk about it a second ago, you know, listening to the podcast as it came out, but like the quote that we had from the 53-year-old man in the first movie, who was Celine's boss, who's saying like, I never really poured my heart into anything. Like, I feel like looking at myself as a 26, 27-year-old man to what could be in my 30s in future, that's what I want to, is the idea to say like, I risked it. And it didn't pan out. It did pan out. Whatever, I risked it. And knowing in my 20s and in my early like teens or like early adulthood, it would have broken me. Like I said, like as an 18-year-old kid, you get your heart broken once, and it feels like you want to die.
Yeah. And I think that's why Jesse's character, you know, in a way, kind of succumbed to the fact that I got to get married. Like, this is it, because he failed so spectacularly with Celine. Essentially, not his fault, right? Nobody's fault, really. Well, but because he failed, he kind of just decided to take on that.
I don't think he failed spectacularly. I think, well, if we go back and we look at the movie, and the reason he got married with her is because he got the chick pregnant, not necessarily because he was in love with her. Like,
is that what happened?
Yeah.
They were like in the one of their off and on and again stages.
Okay.
And he got her pregnant, and then he's like, well, I got to do it now.
Well, now, all right. So, question for you guys. Sorry for interrupting.
I have also a follow-up question.
Oh, more questions.
You want to go first, or I'll go first?
You go first. You go first.
All right. So my question is, do you think that situation would have changed if she would have been there? Probably not, right?
No, because he would have gone home. So
if he would have met her in Vienna 6 months after, would he have married this other girl?
I see.
I thought you were asking like. If he was at the book thing and she
so 100%. He married another person because of the circumstances, because she wasn't there, because of, you know, things didn't pan out. Or do you think she would have met? I mean, they would have met together in Vienna. You know, same thing as the first time. Yeah, you know, whatever, and then dwindled out, and he would have got married anyway.
Well, that's the question, right? Like Jesse was asking. You know, fate is it real? Is it not? Because it kind of seems like the way that this movie is like. Things work out the way that they worked out. Like, this is how it should have been.
No, I know, but that's my whole point. I'm looking at it like I don't think he would have ever got married or had a kid if he would have met her in Vienna.
Potentially, but there's also the risk that he wouldn't have gotten married. He wouldn't have got a kid. But because they were too stupid, too young, and too naive, the relationship couldn't blossom.
Exactly.
Versus where we're at now, we don't know, especially you, obviously, because you haven't seen the last movie yet, George. We don't know where they're going to go.
No spoilers, all right?
No. I don't plan on, honestly. I will keep no spoilers.
And honestly, I don't think you're going to expect what happens in the third movie.
Which is great for everybody.
The less we say, the better.
Bro,
the less we say, the better.
I want to go in just
We're going to watch it right now.
My point is, right, like, you think about it this way, right? At 32 or 33 years old, which is what they're at right now, right? 32. Could you fly to France once a couple months? Yeah. You can budget that.
No, but I'm also saying, like, it maybe would have never gotten to that point if they would have met. They could have potentially been like, you know what, we're doing this. I love how, you know, the feelings I get when I'm with you. So potentially, like, fuck it. Either you're moving with me to the fucking, you know, the U.S. and we're living in New York together, or I'm dropping everything if that's not realistic for you, and I'm 100%. Moving to fucking France.
But then that's when you think about, like, that's my point, right? Is that's when you start to think about sacrifice, and you're like arguably there's two different types of sacrifice, right? There's 20-year-old sacrifice where you're sacrificing like your immediate like desire for planning out your future. You're like, I'm a person who just is in college. I have to think about my career. I'm literally about to start it. I have to start on a right path. I have to set myself up for success versus I'm in my 30s. I've been in my career. Now what I'm sacrificing, if I'm Ethan Hawke in this case, or Jesse, I'm sacrificing the fact that I have a wife, whether I'm in a happy or unhappy or questionable marriage, and a child. What am I doing with that, you know, dynamic? Am I no longer going to have a wife and a child, you know, after this that are with me near time?
No. Well, I'm not looking at it from the perspective like, hey, like, leave his wife and child, or, you know, that obviously it seems like he's not going to drop all of that, you know, that he has. But what I'm saying is, like, it would have never even came to that point potentially if they met. I'm not saying that's what would have happened.
I think if she
things
showed
would have
up,
been different.
Things would have been different. But I have a feeling that their relationship would not have worked, and he would have ended up either in a similar situation or the same.
All right, perfect. However, in my eyes, the risk is a lot better than like not knowing at all.
No, so, I think he wouldn't have written even this book like that he wrote.
Right.
The book wouldn't, because it would have been a sour memory now. Like, it went from being a memory of like, dude, this was the best night of my life,
absolute passion,
exactly, to, oh, this was that time. This is the first night I met Celine, who fucking broke my heart 2 years later. Yeah.
I wonder if this was the book that made him go big, or if he had other things.
I think this is his only book.
This is his only book.
Oh, his only book. Okay, so imagine that career gone.
Because
doesn't exist.
In the third movie, he's I think
hey, we're not talking about the third movie.
Damn it.
We're not
skipping
talking
ahead, bro.
He's
this
a
is
human
trilogy,
being, and that's all you get.
All right. Yeah. Well, I think also.
Okay, so wait. I feel like I'm not 100% sure like that the question's answered. So you guys don't think them meeting up the second time would have changed the circumstances of where they're at in
I
this
think
movie.
they would have hated.
I think it would have.
I think they would.
So you wouldn't have got married. He wouldn't have.
He wouldn't have got married. He might not have had the child. That's a might have, but I don't think.
I think they would have dated and maybe broken up.
Yeah, I think as 20-year-olds, as young 20-year-olds, unless she was already kind of voicing that desire to go to NYU and he was also voicing that desire.
I know she was there when he was there.
But that was dumb fucking luck. That's the point.
No, I know, but it's like, what's to say that wouldn't have happened if they got together? And it's like, you know what? I do want to get my master's. I want to go to the U.S. and study in New York.
That's true.
And then it's like, fuck, boom. Now all of a sudden they have
it's
fucking.
But again, possibilities are endless.
Semantics.
Right?
I know, but it's like, what?
It is fun to discuss.
I don't know.
It is fun.
I like to dive into it.
No, I love it. Me too.
But you also got to think that before she even went to NYU, it was a whole year before, because they met in 92. No, 94.
She said she was there from
they met
96 to 98.
No, when they originally met was the summer of 94.
94.
And then he moved there to
98.
96. No, and she was there in 98.
No, she was there in 96 to 98, and he said that he was there.
I think. 97? Like, because he was there 1 year. They overlapped for 1 year.
Okay, so between 97 and 98.
That was technically right around the year he was getting married then, I guess. Because that's what, if that makes sense, where she was in New York, that was around the time that he was getting married. But my point is this, too, and I think something that we need to always consider as human beings is that we're selfish. And when I make a decision by myself, I like it. But when I'm coerced into a decision, even if it was the exact fucking decision I would make by myself, all of a sudden, it's resent. It's like, what the fuck? Like, you're telling me I need to go to New York? It's like, I don't want to go to New York. I want to live in Texas.
For Nick, it's like, hey, do the dishes. Like, I was going to do the dishes, but you know what?
But
now I'm telling me I'm not going to.
Do this shit at me, okay?
But no, it's like, that's the honest truth. I
can see that. I think we're all like that a little bit. Yeah.
All right, so what I'm hearing from you guys is like, it's almost like we romanticize the idea of love, but it's like when you actually have it in your grasp, sometimes it's not everything it's panned out to be. So it's better to just experience it in your own mind, how you dwindle and believe.
Well, look, man, this guy had 10 years to think about that one day, and he wrote a whole book. And touched people's hearts with it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so the idea of the love that he thought he was feeling might have been actually better than the actual thing itself.
No, absolutely.
Especially when they didn't have
that kind of sucks.
well, no, because look at they rekindled that in less than like an hour and a half. Because realistically, that's how long they were together. There was no cuts. They continuously talked. In an hour and a half, they realized that in those 10 years' time,
nothing's changed between them.
Nothing's changed between
them. And that was one of our questions.
That's why I disagree with Alexis. Like, I don't think they would have dwindled out if they eventually, like, I feel like that.
But their experiences shaped them over those 10 years, 9 years.
And that's why they can appreciate what they had. Because they had shitty boyfriends. They had a shitty wife. Sorry, wife, but shitty wife.
Well, yeah.
He loves his kid, but shitty wife. And
why are you looking at me?
I'm looking at you, Alexis.
He had great things to say about her.
I think it's about the relationship and who they are as people.
I know, but like that's half your relationship. If you
it's a huge part of it.
It's kind of like
people are not compatible. That's not to say that it's like
and circumstances change things. Sometimes
I think the distance of time strengthened their bond, even though it was only a one-day thing.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, without that distance, I don't know if they would have rekindled so
I can
strongly.
see that.
They would have done like young 22 or 21-year-old bullshit. Like, let's be honest.
I get it.
At 21, can we all say that we were mature enough to be in a very serious relationship?
Yeah, Alexis did.
No, absolutely.
He right?
No, but I mean, let me tell you, it was
rough times.
We look back at our 20s, early 20s dating, and it's kind of like, man, like we were stupid and we made decisions that were not like
7 years into a
best.
Relationship with my girlfriend. I mean, I'm not married, but that doesn't mean that I don't look back at year 1, 2, 3 and I'm like, Jesus, fuck. Like it was bad. Like in certain areas, like no.
Are you okay with this?
I'm speaking with myself. And, I can be honest and say my partner made mistakes too, but it's more about like again, the maturity wasn't there. The revelations, like you have to be willing to make mistakes, and this is why I go back to saying like the chances of this successfully kind of flourishing to something are way higher at their 30s, rekindling a love that they kind of never had a chance to sour in the first place, than it is in their 20s trying. I mean, we already fucking know like long distance is doomed for the most part. Like you're not going to make
90s?
Oh, absolutely.
Even worse.
Jeez.
Yeah, at least now it's like
DOA.
Like, why aren't you FaceTiming me daily, you motherfucker? Like, it's not hard,
It's like you're 12 hours away. Like the time difference is kind of fucked.
Is it okay with you guys if I jump towards us?
I still have a question.
Okay,
that have been
ask it, please.
Okay, it's kind of going a little bit back, but so we see how the stuff played out, and the only reason she found him was because he became semi-famous, and he was going to be at the
cafe
at the
book
cafe.
Signing. Yeah.
Now,
which he kind of planned.
which he kind of planned, but
it was very intentional.
Like we're talking about the 90s. Do you think he, as a character, would have searched her out, or just kept the fantasy going, or would you think she would have searched him out if it wasn't for that coincidence that they would have one of them was semi-famous? Because realistically, if that was one of us in the movie, we're just normal people,
right?
There's no way, unless this podcast launched to the moon.
I feel like she didn't search for him as much as he did.
Yeah,
I think she accepted the fact that that's gone.
Well, I think what it is a combination of two things.
And the only reason she even again went back and thought about those emotions were because she read the book.
Oh, and it brought shit up, man.
And it brought shit up. But if it wasn't for the book,
the pot, she said it herself.
If it wasn't for the book, and it wasn't for him showing up at that exact same fucking place, this thing wouldn't have happened. And
she would have been fine, right?
I disagree. I think she literally wrote a whole fucking love song.
A waltz?
No, yeah, the waltz is for him.
She literally said that he's one of the lovers that she can't forget. All these different things.
I mean, she talks about how she had dreams too, where she woke up as a 23-year-old, and then she thinks she has a nightmare that she's 32, and then she wakes up and she's actually 32 and stuff like that in her dream. But what I was gonna say real quick too is like I think it's a combination of two things. I think number one is, it's her. I'm not even going to dog on her a little bit. Losing your grandparent is fucking hard. I can't even imagine what that would be like. I don't want to imagine what that's like in real life for myself. Yeah. So the idea of like that takes over, for me, that would take over something like a fling. And, that was love, in my opinion, watching the first movie. It was love, but it was still newfound love compared to the decades old love that you have for your grandparent.
You know what, Nick?
Different type of love.
Well, this is my perspective because I never really got to meet my grandparents, and I was never that close to them. I think if I was in her position, and even if I had that same relationship that you do, it sounds like you have a beautiful relationship with your grandparents. I think if I knew I had to meet this person and I had those strong emotions, I think I would have gone seen those persons than somebody that's already passed away. And unfortunately, like, those emotions are still going to be there after the fact. And I think it'd be also a great way to just distract myself from that sadness and
well, I
bring
think
some joy
what
into
you're
my
talking about is essentially exactly what Jesse said, where he was like, if it was a couple days later and a couple days earlier, would have made sense.
Yeah, he kept playing with the what ifs, yeah.
Because
those are what ifs.
Well, the problem isn't even like, I agree with you, and
Yeah.
like not everybody's gonna have the same relationship with someone like a grandparent in this case. But I think more than beyond their relationship, the fact that it was just on the same exact day, where it's like, I'm not trying to pretend like everybody has the exact same relationship with somebody who's passed away, but if that person who means something to you is buried on a specific day, that's not a day you get back. That's not a day you can replace. So if December 16th, the day you're supposed to meet, is also the day your grandma has to get buried, she's going to make that date. And that's why he's saying, I think in the end, it's like, oh, fuck, if it was like a couple days sooner, a couple days later, I'm sure we could have made it work.
Yeah, he wasn't saying like, no, you should have skipped out on your grandma.
No, I'm not.
No, absolutely not. But I think that was her reason not to show up, or not to dwell on it.
And from what I think I know of her, she seems like the type that she'd be just completely wrecked, or even like fucking think about seeing Jesse. Like, that's not even on her mind, you know.
Even if she did, in an instant like that, it'd be like, this is not.
Yeah. And
you're not seeing the best of me.
Exactly.
You're seeing,
well, beyond that too, I think there's like a genuine guilt. It's like, because that was the first interaction they had. As soon as they got out of the bookstore, they talked a little bit, they made small talk, and as soon as they got to the real conversation about them, she was just like, I hope you didn't show up. I didn't show up. Oh my God, I hope you didn't. Yeah. And it's like, you don't just say that out of a whim. That guilt has been eating her for 9 years, where she's like, he could have and I didn't.
I'd like to give this question out to the viewers. How would you guys deal with this scenario in terms of, like, would you have skipped your grandparents', you know, because
funeral?
No, because I don't think there would be a lot of people.
Well, I feel like they could have done both.
No, whatever, but like.
No,
just because they didn't have each other's information.
No,
so it's like,
but
can we reschedule the funerals?
But if she knew that he was in that area, you know, maybe she could have been like, okay, I gotta go do something real quick. You know, although I don't know how far away she was.
Well, I think her grandparents were in Germany.
No, they were in Eastern Europe. She was.
It's still a 3 hour.
It would have been a couple hours.
Yeah, maybe that. I think that would have been too much.
The logistics of it wouldn't work.
Well, that doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, as a question to our viewers, because I know we have, there's a lot of people that are.
Maybe we'll get one email.
Yeah, maybe. But there's a lot of people that are first generation immigrants, and some of them unfortunately can't go back to where their grandparents are at. Like,
okay,
would you have that connection? You know, like, what would you have done? And so, everybody's.
This is gonna sound kind of fucked up, but unfortunately, I also did not have, that relationship with my grandparents. It wasn't necessarily that it's like, I've met them now. They're amazing people. I love them to death. They're great. But I never also saw them as like another parental figure to me, because I didn't grow up with them. I didn't have those experiences. It's like, now I see them, I'm like, oh shit, like these are my parents' parents. Like, it's
That's
great.
Cool.
I want to love them, but it's like, in reality, I know that I should love them, but I'm also like, I haven't had enough experiences to feel those emotions, feelings. Like, so I mean, in my eyes, I'm like, it doesn't seem that bad, but also like, maybe I wouldn't have skipped out, because it's like, I want to be there for my parents.
Well, I think that's the beauty of our lives, is that we don't have to make that choice.
Oh, hell
and
no.
that's what's difficult.
Yeah.
That'd be fucked up. Yeah. I think it'd be a really hard decision for most people. I think, the majority, if not almost everyone, would say no. Because the honest truth is, that's not a life event you skip.
Well, nowadays, I think we've luckily grown smart enough to the point where it's like, I don't fucking learn your last name before I get your phone number. Or at least some sort of way to contact.
Yeah, I want to do some dumb shit like that.
No, like and I think it was romantic.
Yeah, but we live in a modern era. We didn't grow up in the 90s.
100%.
We were born in the 90s. It's like,
we briefly grew up in the 90s.
Bro, we were 4.
Yeah. I was messing around with CD players and VHSs up until like 2005. All right.
To this day, shut
up. Because you are a broke ass bitch.
He's on Blu-ray now.
I barely upgraded the Blu-ray, but I kind of want to change gears a little bit, and their discussion after kind of getting that out of the way, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like weird, right? It's like, it's a little flirt. Like, she's very flirtatious towards him, and he's kind of like just joking a bit, but he's more like he's stepping back a bit.
Is he though?
No, I think he is,
because he's from what part?
Okay.
Like,
okay.
Because I felt like he was more flirtatious.
I thought she was.
I think they flirted differently. I think he was more vague with his flirting, and she was more direct.
Yeah.
And I think if you think about the relationships, well, it's beyond the French thing, like the stereotype. You think about the relationships.
You know a lot of French people, Alexis.
I'm like Jesse's dad. He doesn't know shit about
Only
French
Frenchie
girls.
I know is fucking from the boys.
The boys. But no, what I was gonna say was that I mean, you look at the difference in their lives, and he can only afford to be so flirtatious versus her. She's more a casual relationship, and we don't actually even, to be honest, we don't actually know if her like relationship is real. If she's just saying that, he has a ring to back it up.
There's a scene in the car where they get a cabbie or whatever, and they're driving her home. And then she's like, and then she's just talking shit on her relationship because she realizes like it's all bullshit.
Exactly.
Like, she doesn't actually feel that way. Like in the beginning, if you see the contrast, she's literally talking about how like, oh, she has a boyfriend. He's a photographer, and like
he's away most of the time.
And then he asks her, he's like, "Are you in love with him?" And she's like, "Of course." She's almost offended. She's like, "Of course I'm in love with him." And then you see her interaction in the car, and she's like, "Fuck him," and it's just like, holy shit, switches up.
Like your reaction was a little too strong.
She's saying that because she obviously wants to come off that way because it's like he's fucking married and he has kids. Obviously,
she doesn't want to be the one that's like not.
Exactly.
But the thing is that she was the one doing a lot of the prodding in this. And if you look at what happened compared to the first movie, he was the one poking and prodding to see if that could be something, like if he could actually get into her band. He was doing the cool thing, and this time he was a married man. He was going along with stuff that realistically a married man shouldn't have gone around.
Yeah, no, he was being
he crossed the line.
I mean, Alexis was saying that he wasn't, but I'm like, I saw certain instances where I was like, this motherfucker is married and he's doing all this shit, like in the park.
Hey, man, don't get me in trouble. I do think he was flirting. I just don't think he was flirting as hard as her.
I'm not saying that's how you feel, Alexis, but I'm saying like he definitely was pushing the limit on like certain things like that. Because like, all right, I'll give you a fucking very like
be frank.
The example that I'm thinking of that comes to mind is like, all right, they're in the fucking park bench or whatever. And he's like, the world's ending. He's like, what would we be doing? And then he's like talking about hotel room, whatever.
A hotel.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then she was like, why not here at the park or on the bench? Yeah. And then he's like, oh yeah, bench. And then he like grabs her hand, runs over, and puts her on his lap. And it's just like, holy shit.
Do you want to know my interpretation of that? Is the fact that, like I said, she gets to be more direct, right?
Yeah.
And she gets to flirt hard. But he gets to flirt subtly. That does not mean
that was not a subtle flirt.
No. This is what I'm trying to say. That doesn't mean he doesn't want the same outcome that she might want. That just means that he has to take a bigger leap to get there. Her leap is like me telling you I want to fuck you and then taking my pants off and saying I'm gonna fuck you. His leap is saying like, I've been horny for like, whatever, and like alluding to it and kind of dancing around the subject before doing something as crazy as what he did with her on the park bench. And that's my point. I think that's what Alexis is trying to say too, is like he definitely was flirting with her, but it was way more subtle up to those giant leaps, up to those steps.
And because she's inviting it in, and then he's also like,
I think another reason why he did that too is just like, God, like he probably just wanted to grab her, hold her, like so bad.
No, absolutely,
of course.
He's not 9 years of that shit.
Yeah, no, that specific scene, she literally pushes him off. I don't know if you guys noticed, and then she kind of like scoots over on the bench.
But then they get close
to, like,
again.
Restart.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting to see because it's like, all right, and in his mind, he's just kind of like, oh shit, what did I just do?
They're playing like tug of war.
But I think it's because she was just still fucking around, and just again, she was prodding to see. She was trying to see where he was, emotionally. Like she didn't expect to get that type of reaction.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, he was very like.
Yeah, he was more aloof versus she was more direct.
Yeah,
exactly.
he still had some walls, and in that moment, all the walls went down, and
she wasn't ready for that.
And she wasn't ready for that. It was too fast.
Let's talk about like how they've changed. And we kind of touched upon it a little bit, but Nick was saying that Jesse's a lot more like suave and. Yeah, just kind of cooler with his movement and just more sure of himself.
But you know what? I think it goes back to he. I think, to be honest, he had a more successful life than she did. Because if you look at what happened to her in her real life, she dated shitty boyfriends. She made a whole song about a shitty boyfriend. She hated her job working for the government. That's what she wanted to do.
She tried to do the good thing, right, in her life, and it didn't work out.
So like a lot of the stuff didn't work out, and for him, he was like, at the end of the day, like. If he didn't like go through this experience, his life would have been normal.
Yeah.
And he would just have this one dream of her and would have continued that for the rest of his life.
A little bit of a side note, but I like the fact that like, obviously from the first film, the parallel, he's broke. He literally has no money. He's begging the bartender for a fucking wine bottle.
Yeah.
And then in this
They're
one, he's paying for
glasses.
everything. He's like, no, I have it, I got you.
Yeah.
He's like,
No,
I'm not gonna have any use for this.
No,
later.
I'll pay for it. Everything.
And
She's
and he was like, oh, it's sale day or whatever. Let's go shopping. She's like, no. Like,
yeah, exactly.
we don't need to do
I
that.
love that because it's a little contrast. Like, he's like, no, I'm better now. Like, this is what you deserve, and it's kind of like.
And that's what I like to see, that there's an evolution to his character where he's become like. I feel like this is him. This is the real him.
Yeah.
Jesse 10 years ago, he hasn't really
still
experienced
figuring
anything.
I
himself
also
out.
like that he's like in the first movie. I don't
kind
know.
of like reminds me of when we were kids.
I know.
Didn't know what the fuck.
Remember
Nick
I'm
from
getting
high
a little,
school?
I'm
Yeah,
getting a
dude.
little nostalgic.
I
All
love
four
the
of
high
us in
school
high
days.
school.
All four of us, yeah. So good. I'm closing my eyes.
Hey Nick,
thinking-
you were
thinking
there
about
in
them
spirit,
now.
bud.
Yeah.
You were always there.
And physical
Honestly.
too. Physical.
If you guys want a
physical
shirt of saying Nick was there, we will make it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm thinking about it right
But
now.
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, what I was saying was the difference between the two of them now. I think the interesting thing about Jesse more than anything is like if you look at him, like back in the day, it felt like in the first movie he was trying to fill voids with like a lot of philosophical talk, and you know I defended him a little bit in the sense that like I remember being like a 23-year-old trying to figure out life a couple years ago, literally. And especially even earlier on than that, like trying to make sure I understand what my direction and path going forward needs to be. But now, as a young 30-year-old, for him, he's feeling like, oh, I have important things in life that have taken over that need to figure everything out and just be in the moment, love my son, be there for my wife as much as I can be, you know, even if I'm not in a happy
his
marriage.
priorities have changed.
Exactly.
For sure.
And and the way he communicates, what I was going to say was the way he communicates with Celine, though. Like, it makes me, like, the fact that he felt more confident in himself to, like, he even told her, like, can I talk? Like, you're freaking out on me right now. Let me tell you why, like, you don't need to.
I think Jesse from 10 years ago would have been like, this is kind of like too much for me.
Or he would have agreed with her. He's like, yeah, life fucking sucks, bro.
That too.
Like,
He would have matched her.
But again, it goes back to that he experienced a lot more stuff and was able to get rid of some of those, I think, immaturities. And we still see it, like, in Celine's character. She's like, she kind of blames him for a bunch of shit. I'm like, he didn't do anything wrong, you know?
What kind of things could he use?
He was like, you took away that love. You took away that fucking passion. I never had that with anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
She felt incapable of feeling that for
like,
anybody else.
And he was like, dude, you gotta, it goes back to that scene. He's like, well, you gotta calm the fuck down, okay? I ain't take away shit from you.
Yeah, she's almost like aggravated at the fact that she's like, why are these all these ex-boyfriends that I know married now and have kids? It's almost like I showed them how to
and
love.
then you think about her
and then,
with him,
like, and
who's
it's like,
married
none of
and
them
has
asked
kids.
me to
he's
marry
married.
her, marry them, and then she's like, but I would have said no.
But still would have been nice to be asked.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? What are you saying?
That's
it's
some
like,
neurotic ass shit,
what?
bitch.
Yeah, I'm like, what in the
But
world?
I mean, haven't we experienced, something
Yeah.
like that, like to have a conversation like that with,
Yeah, but that's
Like
a
when
little bit.
Alexis doesn't hang out with
narcissistic
me on his
and-
free days.
exactly. Isaac is my Celine.
Yeah.
Hey, well,
Yeah.
let's be honest. We're all selfish creatures. That's just part of being human.
Especially
And
Alexis.
I think she does have a point in
I'm a
that.
Scorpio.
But
Yeah.
it's also like you got to realize when you really come close to loving someone, it's like, all right, you got to be selfless in certain aspects
Yeah, of
just
course.
to be, your better self with somebody else because of just fulfilling the needs of someone, whether it's like depriving yourself of like your own beliefs or things, because it's like end of the day, it's like
Sacrifices.
Why would you want to just be all for yourself all the time? It's like you're gonna end up bitter and like alone, and it's not realistic. So
Yeah.
I have an interesting question. What do you guys think of Celine's character if she actually met somebody that was semi worthwhile? Do you think she would have sought out Ethan Hawke's character? Like, let's say she lived in the same area, she found a dude that she really like is okay with living the rest of her life with, and let's say she got married.
I don't think she would have
But to be honest,
done what Jesse did. I
I don't
she
even think
would've
Jesse would have
accepted
done
it.
what he did if he wouldn't have gotten a woman pregnant. Like, I think
Yeah.
the honest truth is these guys set such a fucking high bar.
He
for
said
each
he
other.
said he had to step up and take responsibility.
Yeah.
That's why he
Exactly.
did it.
That
He
wasn't a
never did.
love language, like, or a
Well,
labor of love.
And there's a whole scene in the boat where he's talking about how he's trying to become the man that he thinks he needs to be rather than who he wants to be.
Yeah.
Because he
That
thinks it's
hit
gonna.
hard, dude.
No, yeah. When he was having that whole conversation about how he's like, well, why did you marry her? If like, you know, whatever, if you're unfulfilled and unhappy. And it's like, no, it's because he thought maybe potentially that would lead to his happiness and, you know, his growth and success. But it's like, now that he's in it, he realizes that was not the right move. But it's like, I feel like a lot of people do that in a sense where it's like, well, potentially if I do this, maybe it'll make me happy, or maybe this is what I'm missing. But then a lot of the times it's not the case. No, and unfortunately, I feel like that's how a lot of people end up in relationships, marriages, certain things where they're like, this wasn't the right move, but at that point, what do you do? Back out now? Yeah, exactly. It's like you're fucking 9 years deep in a relationship, in a marriage, you have kids. He was talking a lot about how he wakes up and he sees his wife and he's unhappy, but he looks at his child and he realizes, I'm here for him. I don't want to miss out on his prime years and all that. And that hit me hard.
But he's also balancing the fact that do I, you know, just focus on this, or do I worry about becoming a 52-year-old who's divorced and wishing things were different?
Exactly. Because then that resentment doesn't just harbor towards your partner. That can harbor towards your child.
Yeah, it affects the child.
So that's a difficult decision to make. And I feel like that's why a lot of us tiptoe into certain aspects of our life. Because it's like, shit, do I want to be stuck in a fucking 9-to-5 that I hate? Do I want to be stuck in a relationship where I resent my partner for everything?
It's a balancing act for everything.
So I think it's difficult. But that scene in the fucking boat was like, holy shit,
But I think it comes down to the compromises that somebody's willing to make with themselves and is willing to actually live with. Because I feel like, I think if he never saw Celine in that day and transport, like, we see it immediately, like. And I think if I was in his position too, and I see Celine after 10 years, and I get immediately transported into being in Vienna, being 21 years, feeling that, like
he's 22 again.
Yeah, like that passion. I think maybe I would honestly go down that route, because it's just like, I'm not happy, you know. And you see how fast in an hour and a half he's able to just absolutely wreck his life.
Yeah. Well, and in an hour and a half, he's able to basically answer all these questions that he's held on to for 9+ years.
All right. So this is one question that I feel like is a little difficult, but it's like, all right, looking at the way he went about things while being married, even though it's a, you know, marriage that he doesn't want to be in, doing all those things, meeting up with this person that he obviously knew he had feelings for, all those things. It's like, that's obviously wrong.
It's wrong.
It's wrong, right?
It is wrong.
Oh, it's 100% wrong.
Yeah, but you're in a situation where it's like, clearly you're incontent, you're unhappy. It's like, all right, maybe let me word it a little bit differently. How would you feel about, you know, your partner doing something like that?
I think that just to back it up just a second before we really answer that, is I think that's exactly why the movie had to end the way that it did. Because
no, you're right.
We are speculating that he literally said, I'm planning on missing my flight. And that means that I want to do something, right? Or I want this to go somewhere. And so we're anticipating that he wants to cheat, but we can't see that he's actually going to cheat.
He's holding back so much.
Yeah. And throughout that, like, you can see, like, they want each other. I mean, and we saw snippets, like you said, on the park bench where where he let those impulses, those desires take over from, like, his responsibilities as someone who is married, you know? And at the end of the day, that's something that is wrong. It's not morally correct, and we know that. I mean,
but that's what's great about the film, because the first one, the question at the end is, will you be back in 6 months? It's up to you, man. Like, depending on who you are as a person, you know, that's your answer. And then this one is, will you upend your entire life, having a wife, having a son,
will you cheat,
a career? Yeah. Will you change your life for this one love that you had 9 years ago?
That may work out, may not work out.
And so, and the answer reflects who you are, right?
The thing is that there's a lot of variables in this character.
It's more complicated.
It's more complicated because if he was in a successful marriage, this wouldn't be an issue. But the fact that he's like, dude, I've read books, I've done marriage counseling, I've done different things, and nothing seems to bring that spark that I had somewhat with this other person. I think it just made him that easy because he felt it in an hour's time.
Not only that, but I feel like he wouldn't have written this book in the first place that got him to Paris if he was in a good relationship.
So I think that from all our perspectives, we would agree unanimously.
Wrong.
It's wrong. We wouldn't do it.
It's
But
wrong.
So
you
a
know
better
what's interesting,
question.
though, is-
No. Well, I mean, say what you're gonna say.
I was gonna say is, if your wife, the woman that you're cheating on, isn't your partner right now, but it's the woman
the
that you're
opposite person.
So that's what I'm saying. Like if your Celine is the one that you're cheating on, in this case, your wife, for you, Alexis, our girlfriends.
Wait, are you asking
Does that
if
justify it?
would I cheat on my wife? Is that what you're asking?
No. Would
He's
you
saying
cheat
he's
on
like-
your wife if the woman you're cheating on your wife with is Crystal?
Oh, I see.
So he's not saying like.
let's in this case.
Basically, put yourself in Jesse's shoes. That's what
Exactly, because theoretically,
Why'd you complicate this question?
Well, no, that's the thing. What I'm trying to get to is, I know it's very complicated. It's very difficult.
Because it's not. You're not putting yourself in justice because it's like, technically, that's not. Right now, you're in a happy relationship that you want to be in with.
That's
but
why
like,
it's so
let's
easy
say
to
you
say
flip
no.
the script and it's like, all right, you're in an unhappy relationship with someone that's some fucking unknown, and then your opposite person.
The
Crystal-
grass
Crystal's
really
on the
is
other
greener.
end.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Is right now we're saying
I don't
why would
think
I
I'd do
risk
it.
that?
I wouldn't be able to do it.
I think
feel
this is
like-
a bad question.
It's a
I don't-
tough.
No, it's
No,
a good
I don't-
question
yeah.
because it brings out like how do you actually feel? And
Well,
I feel
because
like
the question
wouldn't
is,
be-
will you cheat on
No,
somebody
but
if this
isn't-
person is the
No,
love of your
I know,
life?
but this isn't cheating. This is saying, hey,
No, because like this person, in my perspective, Jesse thinks that this girl's the love of his life, but is she actually?
Well,
Have
that's
they
one of the questions they
experienced it
brought
enough?
up.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't think it is. So
You know what? I respect you. I just want you to know that.
I would say no.
no, we all respect you.
I think all right. So a better question, I think, in general, that I think it's easier for us to answer because it's not as like whether it's cheating, yes or no. It's like that I feel like morally all of us would be no. However, let's say that you're the other person. Let's say you're the girl in this case, the girl
wife.
that Jesse is married to, right?
Okay.
Let's say you're unhappy in your marriage, everything. Would you want actually? Well, I mean, I guess just in the relationship, would you want your spouse to tell you that they're unhappy and
Absolutely.
like that?
Well, I think she knows.
No, well, they've been to marriage counseling. They talk about it.
Yeah, but I think that's a better question though. It's like, all right,
No, absolutely.
wouldn't you
Absolutely.
want to just have
Well,
them be like,
they
hey,
had the whole fucking joke about the fact that it's like whether or not women or men take criticism about sex.
See,
better.
but at that point, it's like it's a lot easier because it's like, all right, if you're really unhappy and you don't want to be together, that's a different situation.
Well, I mean, it's still,
But-
you know what? Like, my point in saying I respect you is this: like, worst case scenario, I'm gonna cheat on my wife tonight, right? If I'm Jesse and I'm like,
Shit, I'm gonna tell her.
no, I'm just saying, like, if I'm Jesse and I know that's my intent, you know what I do is I step outside, I go to a phone booth, I fucking find a way, and I make a call and I say, hey, I can't, I'm done, and I end it. But there's no way in hell, and I take my fucking wedding ring off and I make it clear that that's done. But
that's
I don't.
also kind of a fucked up way.
Well,
You
hey,
broke
if-
it up with.
But
I'm
it's the
saying- I
most
said,
honest
I've been
way.
married for
Worst.
9 years. You broke
Well-
up with me on a telephone booth in France. You piece of
Hey,
shit.
but
It
I'm
was in
taking the
France.
It's
kids.
been loveless
I'm
for like
taking
4
the
years.
fucking house.
It was in France, so it was
You better
romantic.
believe I'm taking
George.
50% of the proceeds
back,
from all
step
your
back.
other
George,
bucks.
step back. Because look at that. This is gonna be part of the third question in next week's
I
episode.
am
You'll
not.
See,
Listen.
you'll see
No,
what
no, I
happens.
know. But
Listen,
I
listen,
mean,
listen,
I
listen.
feel like wouldn't that be a better question though? Like, all right, wouldn't you want? All right, if you're Jesse's spouse, you would want him to tell you, "Hey, I fucking don't like our relationship. I'm unhappy. I'm only here because of our child."
But they made that
100%.
abundantly clear though.
No.
because-
But has Jesse ever expressed
Well,
those feelings
regardless,
to his
but
spouse?
this,
Okay,
I don't know.
But
Number
that's why-
one, I kept trying to tell you that was worst case scenario. I'm not saying I'd do that. I'm saying that if I had to, if I was like, if I felt like the only way to secure happiness in my life was to find a way to be intimate with my Celine in that moment, that would be what I'd have to do.
Okay, yeah, that's very on the nose. But what I'm saying, for me, my perspective, I'd prefer it if I'm like, all right, this girl's like, hey, there's this person that I've been fucking in love with for 9 years.
Yeah,
I
but
married
you're talking
you.
about
It
saying
was a
something
mistake.
3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Guess what?
Whatever.
I don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
I would rather try to sort my shit out, whether it's with this person, whatever, or somebody else. I'd prefer that over my spouse cheating 100% of the day. So in a way, I'm agreeing with you.
I want to ask another question. Okay, this is very simple. Okay, it's much more simple than whatever the fuck you guys are asking. Okay,
But I think this what makes it an interesting
No,
conversation.
nothing is
Alright,
simple about
that's fine.
love,
Whatever,
Alexis.
man.
It's very
but
complicated. I
do you
feel like-
root? Do you root for Jesse and Celine? After watching this film, do you want them to be together?
Yes.
You say yes, Nick.
I want them to be together more than I want myself to be together with myself. My
Okay,
relationship
so you say
with
yes.
myself
All right, whatever.
doesn't
All right,
matter as
George.
much as them being together.
All right, George.
Yeah. With the information that
Shut
I'm
the
given.
fuck up, George, and just say
Yes
yes.
or no,
or
man?
else kill
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
But
we
that's-
want them to have the best life possible because we see that they are meant for each other.
But the thing is, we could say that.
But why is it so complicated for us?
we
to
can
make
say
that
that because we don't know his relationship with his wife.
No,
We do.
no.
We
do.
Listen,
No,
It sucks.
based off what he's saying, but maybe he's just spitting bullshit.
but
to
here's
try
my-
to
I don't
think so.
get in-
again,
I
to
know.
go back to what he's saying, we are speculating based off of who we are. Are we the romantics? Are we the realists? Are we the cynics? If you want to be the cynic, you're going to take everything he said from movie 1 to movie 2 as a lie to get in her
Total
pants.
BS, yeah.
None of it has ever been romantic. It's all been just to fuck her because he's a player, because he's a cheater, whatever. You can speculate everything that he said as a lie to just coerce a French woman into sex twice.
That's like so cynical.
Honest.
I know,
That's
I'm
my
like,
point.
are you saying we're self-projecting?
No,
based on
not at
our
all.
feelings?
I'm not trying to say
He's
what you're
just
saying.
doing this because he wants to fuck.
No, but that's my
Alright.
point, though.
I mean, he did in the first movie.
It's the
for
opposite.
Sure.
But he was
Twice.
single. But he was
Well,
single.
hey, but she's talked about
He
how
was
horny she
single.
is and how Frenchmen aren't horny for her. So
Yeah, but
it's
she's
not-
also not married with a fucking.
Hey, I'm
All right.
100%
Okay,
George.
so that's
You
the
keep going
simple
back to
side.
that, okay?
What's the optimistic?
No, the optimistic side is at the end of the day, like you say, like you. I
That is
was
true.
I was reading my favorite quotes, or I was reading like the list of quotes because, and I want to talk about these in a second, hopefully. But like even the quote from the first one, where we talk about the cynical version of him taking the word of the gypsy woman as them being stardust, as like whatever, like she's
He's
just
like,
saying
that's
some shit
bullshit.
where it's like
He's
no,
trying to make you
it's-
feel good.
and then you see Celine going
She's
like, no,
trying to
I like that. We're stardust. Like we're not just mundane shit. Like we come from stars, like physical stars in the galaxies and universes around us. That's such beautiful
It is
fucking
beautiful.
concepts, you know? And so like the idea that they were meant for each other, that the connection, and I mean, I'm not going to lie, dude, the chemistry, these movies mean something to me because it's insane. Like it pisses me off, bro. I don't know what the fuck he's seeing in Uma Thurman, but fucking get rid of
they
her.
split up.
Well, good, because she's no fucking Julie Delpy.
No, what? And that's isn't Julie Delpy just like
Better,
I can't help but I feel like I fell in love with her. You know,
dude. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
like by the end of the film, I just like I don't know.
I think it's difficult to really step back and look at it, you know, objectively rather than you know, for the fact.
Subjective.
Yeah, exactly. But
George,
hold on.
can I
Isaac.
ask you
Let me finish my
okay.
fucking thought. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna forget, motherfucker.
You guys
Wait,
did
wait.
this to each other
One
last time.
second. We have never been this fucking passionate about any movie. We're cutting each other off.
No.
We're fucking
Talking
No.
over each other.
You know why I think
Love is
we
real.
we dive so deep into this because I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like I do.
real.
I put myself in their shoes and I picture my current girlfriend, and it's like I see us meeting and like having these feelings, and do you not agree, Alexis? I feel like that's literally what I picture. I'm like looking at the first time that they
George.
meet, and I'm also like, oh my god, that's
George, but you
literally the feelings and emotions that I
know,
had
but
when I
you-
met.
In this question, in the questions that we keep asking you, you're putting yourself. You're
You're like,
but
I wouldn't do
I'm-
it for my girlfriend.
No,
I don't love her like that.
no, like you're putting yourself saying you're like, hey,
No, but
can I fucking finish,
Nick
George?
fucking switched it, and then
Okay.
he's like, "Would you cheat on
Hey,
her
wait,
to be with
just,
your current
if you're
girlfriend?"
gonna
I'm like, "That's a
scream,
terrible question because that's fucking
No,
difficult
okay,
to
no,
answer."
but no, because look it, the question I'm asking you, and you keep saying like, no, my morals or whatever, right? But you already know that you're in an unhappy situation. This person has been the only person that you felt something real in literally a fucking decade, and that is your quote unquote your partner now. You're telling me that you wouldn't go after, and especially knowing the type of person that you are, George.
What the fuck is
No,
that
no.
supposed to mean?
No,
Hey,
but
yo, what the fuck?
Can we all agree? George
Oh, hell
George
no.
is a very he can be a very selfish person that wants
Well,
his.
let's not get too personal.
All
here.
right, but
Let's not get. Cause we're gonna lose him.
Yeah,
We're gonna
walk-
lose him.
He's walking away.
he's walking
Walking
away.
away.
George has like always been the guy like, and we've talked about another podcast, so I think it's out there. He's always wanted the adventure. He's always wanted
The rush.
the rush. He's always wanted to search out his own happiness and prioritize his own happiness. You know, like we talked about the time he literally moved halfway across the country just to experience anything, and it's kind of like it's a little.
all the way.
That's
across
true.
the
Yeah,
country.
knowing you, George, I feel like I would guess that you would make the decision to, you know what, I want to be with Celine.
Yeah, like we would think the spontaneous, but you know what? I respect you. I mean,
but like, guys, you also have to understand that all right, a lot of the things that I've done and it's been single. It's been me just doing, but the situation changes when there's a family involved, when other people are at stake, when there's a child. It's like, what the fuck?
I'm not just gonna
be so fucking quick to just like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna drop my entire fucking thing.
Look, I agree with you. Just to wrap this up, best case scenario would be he tells Celine he loves her. He goes home. He fucking amicably divorces his wife, gets joint custody, flies back to Paris, and then rails her in every position he fucking can.
God damn it!
I get it. I agree with you. I'm not saying I
guy.
don't, but I'm saying if that isn't an option, that's a hard question, and I don't want to get back into it. We've fucking gone way too far into it, and I agree that that's my point. It's a hard question.
This is a hard tangent,
but I love that because
it's very situational. Until you have to understand.
Situational. It's literally exactly probably why the director chose to end the movie the way he did, because it's like, I can't tell you that it's right to do one or another, and I can't tell you like the romantic in you is gonna be like, how are you not gonna have sex with her? Who cares? You'll figure everything out.
But I don't think that matters, especially when it's your own happiness. Fuck like all the moral complications that come along with it. But if you imagine contemplating, like not even like just saying that he's gonna go out with Celine, but imagine contemplating for the last 4 years that you're totally unhappy with your situation.
No, I get it, yeah.
And the only thing that's keeping you in that situation is for your kid. I think the morals go out the window. I realistically think at some point.
But don't you think there's something to be said that if you've waited 4 years for a moment that you never thought could happen, as in meeting Celine again, you could wait 4 years, but 5 days?
Yeah, but like, all right.
No, we're not saying. I'm not saying like I would cheat like immediately. Yeah. I would go your route. I'm like, you know what, this opened up my eyes. Like I know
what I need to do.
I know what I need to do. I'll go home and I'll come back. But and that's what's like I don't like about the way that George is responding to it, because I'm just like, dude, I don't like George's answers. I'm not saying like, hey, you have to do this today.
George is George.
I'm standing firm.
No, but like
I can see it.
I'm proud of you because you usually don't stand firm in shit.
Yeah, hey, what the fuck? Personal. Wait, is this about the movie or my stance?
You know what? And you know what? This is why I love.
Standing stiff.
I'm gonna say it. I love this movie. Before Sunset is probably I need to change it in my letterbox, but I love this movie so much because it like tugs at me. I feel like it grabs my fucking heart and just like fucking just twist it.
I like how
I was telling you before we watched it. The first one made me fall in love, and this one made me feel pain.
Yeah,
dude. And imagine if we weren't in happy relationships, how crazy this conversation could have gone.
Oh my god, yeah. If I was unhappy, I would have been fucking crying, guys.
Like this, because like this is like honestly, if you're not in a happy relationship, do not watch this movie with your partner, because it's like
yeah. But you know, and like just watching these people make these decisions, like I don't even care about the fact that he's married. He has a kid. I don't give a fuck, man, because at the end of the day, what's more important to, or what should be important to any of us is just like I need to love, and I want to be loved, and I want these characters to have that, because it's just how beautiful they are.
I think it's simple to say that, because also none of us have kids and none of us have experience. Maybe the love for a child
we're not at their age
greater than just something where it's like, what could have been. Because all right, the reality is, the way I see it, if I put myself in Ethan's shoes, Jesse's shoes, I don't think I could possibly be in love with someone after meeting them twice. So that perspectively would it alone be like, all right, maybe it could potentially lead to love, but I'm not going to go and drop everything for the potential of love.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what you did, if you think about it. Like, so, I mean, I'll be honest, my relationship, it's not like I've never taken a break or paused. You know, I'm sure we've all had moments in our relationships where we needed to, take a step back, reevaluate, reassert what exactly our goals out of our lives and our tandem lives together were, to then realize for ourselves and for each other that we wanted to work it out, right? Mm-hmm. And so in this case, that's what I felt. At first, it was just a very modest rekindling of like, oh, what's your life like? What are you doing?
Super innocent.
What you been up to? Yeah.
The flirtation, and this is what we're talking about. The flirtation from Ethan was always very mild, versus from Julie, she, Celine's character and Jesse's character. I keep using the actor's names. I'm sorry, but Jesse was very mildly flirting.
It might be the same,
versus Celine was flirting a little bit more confidently.
Well, she was all she. again, she was the instigator in every
Yeah,
situation.
she had the confidence because she didn't have anything to worry about, really.
Like, the dude didn't fucking...
But
like,
my point being was, like, you're 100% right. Like, he wasn't really willing to risk anything. He was like, I don't even fucking know if you're the same person. And throughout, even though this spans way less time than the first movie did, because they already had that initial connection and they knew what it was, it didn't take them more than a couple hours to immediately notice, like, you are the exact same woman I fell in love with the first time. And I know that. And you've changed, but you've aged well. I've aged well, hopefully you feel. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that's why, like, I don't know, like I said, like, in the relationship breaks that I've had in my life, like, the longer they are, I agree with you, the more reserved and the longer kind of I'll have to wait to really even see if there's something that... You also have to remember the fact that this relationship didn't end on a sour note necessarily. It ended on a sour note probably in the first coming years where he felt, oh, you ditched me, you dumped me. But as soon as she was able to justify it with something as real as, like, my grandmother died, all of those memories of pain and sorrow, of doubt, of what did I do wrong, what was wrong with me that she didn't show up, gone. Because immediately you feel relief. Like, she's saying, I would have been there. I would have done everything in my fucking power to be there. It's like, I can't feel more validated than that.
And that's what's so beautiful about the end, because Jesse is there sitting after she's, saying him the song, and he's just watching her imitate Nina Simone, just being silly, just being herself. And at the same time, the song Just in Time. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's a beautiful song. But all that, and you just see Jesse's, expression. And I think we all know what his decision is. At that moment, he's head over heels for her. He knows.
He's back in time.
He knows.
Which is he went back to. He's like, fuck. I'm back in Vienna.
Yeah, it may be 9 years later, but they found each other just in time.
Yeah. Which I want to talk about a couple different
quotes.
What a fucking
quote! What a fucking quote right there, buddy.
I talked to.
That's the tagline.
I said this to Alexis a little bit, and I said it to all you guys. I don't know if you guys all heard, but I know Alexis heard me, but, like, there's very few movies where I feel like I actually really like the quotes that they say. Like, I feel like whether they're trying to be too philosophical or, like, it's just too stupid.
Dude, whoever wrote this is a fucking guy.
Well, even, like, there's one.
Richard Linklater.
There's one that I liked
else.
in here where it says, like, memory is a wonderful thing if you don't have to deal with the past.
Oh yeah, and he was like, "Oh, let me put that on a bumper sticker."
And, like, they said it as a joke, but I'm like, dude,
but it's
seriously,
a good line.
No, that was
like, like, I was like, fucking hell, like, that shit hit me hard.
Wait, memories are.
It says right here, memory is a wonderful thing if you don't have to deal with the past.
What does that mean?
So if your memories are good, and there isn't anything bad about it, back then, and anything that'll make you sad or cry, whatever, then
Well, think about exactly, like, the whole point being, again, like, Jesse, his memory of a book that he wrote of a wonderful night of an amazing time is great because he doesn't have to think about the consequences of that night, of him showing up when he doesn't think about that. When he ignores the fact that he showed up, he put fucking, flyers everywhere, prostitutes were calling him to go to his hotel room, and he was alone. And then all the money, everything, he would write a book. He'd be like, fuck this bitch, like, honestly. He'd be like, I don't want to be, he's like, I don't want to think about
his
this
words. His words.
But that, like, let's pretend like, beyond everything, that's exactly how he would feel. But when you don't think about those.
I also, the way that I perceive that quote is, like, you look at those things and, you realize sometimes the memories of certain situations are a lot better than the actual experience that happened.
Yeah, of course.
Which is insane because it's like sometimes maybe you recall something in a certain way, and then you meet up with a buddy or whatever, or a partner, and then you have a conversation about it, and then they perceive it a different way, and then you realize, oh wait, maybe that memory wasn't as good as I recall it to be. But in my eyes, it doesn't matter because the memory was a lot better than the actual experience.
When you don't relive the past.
Exactly. So that's how I
and in this case, they both have in their memories a perfect night.
Yeah, and this is another good one right here. This one was, I like the one where she talks about, she says, you can never replace anyone because everyone is made up of such beautiful, specific details.
Yeah, and
then
also
she
resonates.
goes on to talk about the redness in his beard that night and the sun reflecting on it.
So I thought that quote was interesting. But not only that, like the whole tangent she goes off on how she remembers, certain people in her
little
life.
Tiny details. Rather
but
than
it's like, even though there's certain people that are no longer in their lives, they still recall in a certain way of like, oh, I remember this specific thing or that, and I remember all the good things and the memory. And it's like the memories are not tainted about who it was with. It's more just like the experience itself,
the feelings,
and it has nothing to do with the person. And I correlate that a lot because like sometimes there's certain instances that I look back at my life and I'm like, you know what? Even if there's certain friends, certain family, whatever, they're no longer part of my life, those memories are still there, and
can
the
still
tangents
cherish
are
it.
still, and you still cherish it, and I appreciate that a lot because I'm like, that's the way I go about my life. I look at it. I'm never gonna like, even if bridges are burnt, I'm still gonna look at the memories back the same way that I do. I'm not gonna be like hold.
That's not gonna change.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like a lot of people do. Yeah. They're just like, oh, bridges are burnt. Fuck that. Like, grudges. I'm over and done with it. Yeah, and it's just like, what? That blows my mind. It's like, why ruin a pure thing? It's like.
Yeah, and it seems like Jesse didn't let his disappointment ruin anything either, which was really nice, really nice. If you don't mind, I know we're going pretty long in this, but I just want to do the letterbox reviews real quick, very quickly, and then we'll wrap this up
and we'll give our rating.
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like this movie is an hour and 20, and I feel like we've discussed longer than what the film is.
We just hit an hour 20.
No,
oh really?
It's an hour 20, 24 seconds.
That's insane. That is insane. All right, let's get into the letterbox reviews. I'm gonna start with the bad one. Okay, this is from Son and Bone, half star.
That's
I can't
crazy.
fucking believe it.
0.5 stars.
Not my cup of tea. Not aesthetically convincing. Lacks some kind of tick. I would love it so much better if it were more like an Amorish color style. Blah 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 blah. I guess it's just Linklater, which might find more echoes among young white males who go through heartbreak or family trauma in life, generally speaking.
Yo,
first of all, the first thing I want to say, none of us are young white males. First of all, Alexis is fucking half Asian, half Peruvian. I'm sorry, half Japanese, half Peruvian. Colombian, Mexican.
But I look very ambiguous. I could be Samoan too.
You could be Samoan, absolutely.
You do look a little ambiguous.
So
you look
and I
like
think
a linebacker. That's what you look
to
like.
really like to make it. I'm not trying to talk shit on you, but I'm gonna talk shit on you. You really made it about like the color scheme and like the tones in the fucking film when this film hasn't like
nothing to do with it.
Like, why does Paris have to be fucking romantic?
They didn't get a fucking Academy Award for the fucking
well, not only that, but it's like if you
background, it's like
stop romanticizing these places. They smell like fucking piss. Go to
First
Paris.
of all, did you see where she lives? There was fucking tagging on the wall.
I don't want to anger our French audience if we have one.
Hey, well, fucking
Paris is dirty. Let's get that out of the way.
Absolutely.
Look, this has nothing to do with location.
Dude,
it's about the people.
Honestly, this movie.
LA, piss.
Dude,
England,
honestly, if somebody made an audiobook of this movie, I would listen to it because it's
I bought the book of it has the script of both the first and the second.
Yeah.
Fucking
it's
nerd.
Like
so good.
Like, come on, like this is something.
Can I borrow it sometime?
No.
Bitch, he hates his pages creases, and that's the first thing.
No,
don't crease the page.
Alexis knows I can't read.
They're a bit sticky.
He's illiterate.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy sucks, right?
Yeah.
That
but we love
awful.
you still. Thank you for.
We do appreciate it.
I don't think he watched the first movie. I think he thought this was a standalone.
Well, no, he did
film.
reference the director.
I don't know if it's a man or woman or just they.
They
referenced, Well, I'd have to think that a woman is smart enough to not give this 0.5 stars and reference white males, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a point. Half star. Okay, so this is a good one. This is a 5 star from Sage. I was fine until the final scene where Julie Delpy sang the waltz song. An absolute mess I was. I cannot imagine watching this when it came out and wait in agony for the sequel. I'm not okay. It's 2 a.m. Please, someone help me.
We cannot
Dude,
help
you know what?
But
she's totally right because I feel like.
Again, we don't know.
We don't know.
Totally they're totally right.
I think anybody in this, like, if we were in his position, dude, I think we would crumble.
Oh my god!
Dude.
You would like.
I'd explode into 1,000 molecules.
Nick would have given 100%.
Well,
cheated.
Here's the honest thing.
Why you gotta go cheating?
No. I'm not a cheater. Here's the honest thing, though.
I call, say, hey, it's over, and then I go back.
I would have ran outside, got on a call phone.
There's cell phones. Worst case scenario.
There's cell phones in this movie, Nick.
I don't know.
You can do it straight from the couch.
I don't know about that. But anyway, one thing I was gonna say was is at the end of the day, this person's review. What's real about it more than anything is that it felt like right before this scene that Celine was backing off, and this was like that green light, go.
Because she could have easily sang a song about the fucking cat.
Oh,
she had 2 songs about the cat.
She chose to put his name in it,
and
too.
her ex as well.
Yeah,
so.
She chose to put Jesse's name in it. So, and she could have admitted that, whether it was really part of the song or not.
I think it was part of the song.
Well, even if it was,
know.
she could have taken it out. She didn't have to add that. But literally a couple minutes or an hour ago, she was in the cab fucking screaming at him, or in the car saying, like, I need to get my own cab. You know, you've messed me up. Fuck you, whatever. They reconciled. All he was going to do was technically walk her up. She offered tea. She did a little dance for him. She sang for him. Like,
well, he did say, hey, come on, like, just
no. I'm not saying he didn't. He was making it very clear. Like, they flipped 180 at some point where he was like, I want this. And she was the reserved one. That was her. I'm no longer reserved. And that's where I agree. It broke me too.
I think he had an agenda from the get-go. He knew he was going to miss his flight. It wasn't even about the flight. He wanted to see how far he could push.
No, but I think whether he thought he was going to miss his flight because he was just like, I haven't seen this person in almost 10 years and I need to get closure for myself.
That's why he wanted to see how far he could push it.
I don't know if it pushed it. I don't know,
like if she was feeling the same way.
No, but
if it was reciprocated.
Yeah. But
that's what I mean by pushing.
But I think that would in the first couple of minutes we saw that she was open to the idea of being with him.
Yeah, like he almost wasn't.
He wasn't. I don't think he honestly went to this because he wasn't expecting her. You know, he didn't plan to see her. Yes, he wrote a book about her, but I think he could continue living on his life. And I think honestly, I don't know. Alexa hasn't gone on many dates, but I think I've
gone on many dates with my one partner.
Why? What the fuck?
No, but like,
all right.
No, okay.
Put him on blast. Like
no,
that.
but I think we've been on dates with like women, and like after 15 minutes, we're like, "What the fuck am I doing here?"
Oh, that's fucking sad.
No, dude, it happens, dude. Dude, like on George, can you agree?
That
like,
sucks.
Like you've been on like this chick is a fucking goddamn fucking.
Hey, don't bring
bore.
George into this. Don't bring George into this.
I can't recall. Like I'm gonna get you.
I plead the fifth.
No, I mean I was gonna plead the fifth, but I'll be honest with you. I haven't really been on too many dates where I'm like, hey, I want to get the fuck out of here. It has happened.
Yeah.
But primarily because I don't go on dates with people unless I know that there's something worth pursuing. Like I don't.
Okay. What about you, Nick? Well, either way, it's happened, right?
You'll
know immediately.
No, I agree with you.
No,
yeah, you can see when there's no. Yeah. There's no connection, nothing, and you're like, we're gonna get the fuck out of here.
Because it wasn't their connection the first 15 minutes. When he got to the cafe, he wouldn't have been like, oh, you know what? Let's take this little detour.
What do you guys think about that portion that Nick was saying where she just plugged in his name? I don't believe that.
No. I am not saying she plugged in his name.
It's a nice callback to the first film.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying she plugged in his name. I'm saying the same way that you could say, Jesse's mom has got it going on, or Stacy's mom, or Tabitha's mom. Yeah, it's Stacy's mom has got it going on. Or you could just say somebody's mom. Like, that's what I'm saying. She could have changed the lyric.
She chose to, like, say,
she
this song is about you. It's obvious it's about you.
But she almost didn't say Jesse, I think.
No, she paused. I remember specifically.
She did. She was like,
she pauses. She's like, Jesse. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that's a really beautiful song. And I think Julie Delpy actually composed that song.
Shit.
Yeah. Didn't you say you learned it on guitar?
I did learn how to play it on guitar.
All right, hey,
it's very easy.
You want to serve?
Play for me, but say no.
I'm willing to listen.
If you, I'll play the song. You just gotta go to my apartment.
Or you just bring it here.
All right.
Anyways,
we doing takeout or?
All right, moving on. This was a long one, but this guy. By Adam Sandler. like bisexual Adam Sandler.
Oh, that's probably actually Adam Sandler too.
That's funny. They gave it 2.5, but just to shorten it, much worse than Before Sunrise in my opinion. Less about two pessimists who find a joy for life with each other, and more about two people in different relationships who can't stop fucking each other and talking about sex. I like that. And then
honestly, they aren't lying. They aren't lying.
And they prefer the open ending of the previous movie, not knowing for sure but thinking they met again. It was a sweet thing to imagine.
Sorry.
And let's see. Am I supposed to imagine they fucked after the movie ended? And this is a good ending to a movie? Huh? Hopefully Before Midnight will be better. 2.5.
First of all, you bisexual Adam Sandler. I like the ending because obviously
Adam Sandler is not defined by his sexual orientation. I just want you to understand.
No, but this Adam Sandler is bi. Okay. So
you mean the?
Look, the point is that I think that I liked it that left it open-ended because if they were to just show them like full on cheating or not, or he gets on his flight, whatever, I think that would have been too much on the nose.
I think they felt that it wasn't open ended enough.
Well, no, I think that it wasn't as deep of an open ending compared to like the first, like, I have to leave.
He specifically said that he
said, "Am I just
like,
supposed
to imagine?"
Yeah,
like,
they also say,
like,
now I
that's
see that they
do.
both found each other, and I'm sure they still love each other. But okay, better luck next time, y'all. Have partners who you should respect.
No, that's the whole point.
Funny.
It's like it's not about them like actually hooking up or him getting on his flight. It's about how you perceive it to be, and I think that's the whole thing. And it's like he's too fixated on the fact that it's like, all right, I want to see one or the other, and it's like, why? Why do you?
Well, the honest truth of the fact is, it's like, dude, I mean, the whole idea of the first movie too, the open ending of it, you could be a cynic, you could be like a hopeful person, whatever. This one's similar in the sense that like you can be a cynic and say, oh, Jesse's gonna cheat on his wife and fucking break her heart and be a terrible, partner and father type.
Abandon his kid.
Yeah. Or you could be positive and say like he's gonna be a responsible adult who's gonna look in that moment, realize he needs to have a serious discussion with his partner and say, I can't do this anymore. But regardless, I understand the perspective that, it isn't as crazy of an open ending as the first one. But I also reject the notion that the cynicism is what made the first movie great. Because, again, we talked about it. I see Jesse as a cynic, 100%. Celine had cynic qualities for certain things, but she was also very willing to just be hopeful and happy and optimistic.
And they flipped in this
things.
one.
But I think again, that's the whole thing. They're in a different place in their life, and I think everybody at a young age, I think we're a little bit more cynic. At a younger, are we hopeful? Are we vibrant with life? But at the same time, I think all of our emotions are much deeper, and we feel like they're much deeper. And so, like, when you're cynic, you're a cynic, and you're like overly joyous about them, you're overly joyous. And I think as life progresses, you calm down, and you find out what really is true or not.
You find your balance.
Yeah.
There's certain, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, even when they were talking about fucking the environmental issues and everything else about her job, and she was like, oh my God, like, you're not saying the world's a better place. And he's like, no, I'm not saying there isn't problems. I'm saying now that there's an outlet for us to voice them. And more people who are educated are choosing to pursue ways to do that, to bring attention to those things. And it's like,
he's like a realist. He's a realist and an optimist.
And a cynic at times too. But that's my point is, like, I think just like Gator's saying, is as a child or as a young adult, like, you feel like you have to full throttle one way or the other. I'm either like, same dude, honestly, like, what really hits me on this concept is like the whole concept of introvert versus extrovert. There's a lot of times in my life where I feel super extroverted, and then there's times in my life I realize like I get very introverted, and I'm just like, I don't belong to it. Like, there can't be a spectrum on this. There can't be like a situational kind of behavior, like, and so that's where, similar to this, is I feel like as you get older, you have the opportunity to say like, I can be optimistic, I can be realistic, and I can be cynical as I choose to, in the ratios or in the quantities that I think are best. And because of that, and because of the different stages that they are in life, that's where we see those parts of both characters where they're less cynical, more other things, but that doesn't mean that they don't have those quantities.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Another beautiful statement from Nick, just as always.
But
eight claws in.
But all right, bye, Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
2.5 star. You know what?
Appreciate your input.
I
just have different opinions.
They're not as douchey as the other.
No, because
reviews.
he had a legitimate he is true. Like this, they were eye fucking each other. Yeah.
They were doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this film probably more difficult than the other ones, because
the
insinuation
person,
is that somebody's cheating here.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
Yeah, no, it's like, in a sense.
Yeah. All right. This is our last one by Varun Sharma. He says, "Time stops every time I watch this film. It's got to the point where I don't even watch the subtitles. I know the dialogue before it even comes out. I just look at how they look at each other. It's everything I want from life." And I agree with this guy 100%. He gave it 5 stars.
Dude, and
5 stars.
Yeah.
It was more apparent in the first movie, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah,
like
dude.
The glances, but I think it's so appropriate that it's less because of what we've talked about, their stages in life.
And in this film, I like the way they glance at each other as they're going up to her apartment. It's
good.
similar to the one that the scene that you loved.
Yeah,
dude,
in the record shop.
I think what makes this movie
like makes you melt, doesn't it?
What this movie makes it, like, it doesn't have to be overly dramatic. Like, it doesn't have to be like in the first movie where everything had to be a profound question, everything had to be a profound answer. There had to be layers to it. No, they just they just came together again and they found that balance between each other.
Talk about work. Talk about life.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
And they're like, dude, we think we can do this. This is the thing.
Well, do you guys want to give it your final review?
Yeah, I'm curious. What's your guys' rating? What's your review?
I'll give it an 8.5.
8 point. Isn't that the same as?
No.
Wait. You gave the last one a 9.5.
Yeah.
And you give this one an 8.5.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Interesting.
But you said that you like this one better than the first one.
But I just think it's there's a lot of moral issues. Like I'm agreeing with George.
Oh, interesting.
I see.
So you can say that you
I'll agree with George.
That.
I agree with George, but at the same time,
wait, say that again. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, we got to record it, bro.
I agree with George, and I wouldn't step over that line. But then I agree with what Nick's saying, and what I said too was just like, hey, if I've been in this position for the last like 4 years where I can't see happiness with this person. You gave it 4 years. I feel like that's giving it the old college try. And
it's a college. That's a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, exactly.
4 years. That's a college try.
George wouldn't know.
Oh,
yikes! Burnt. Okay.
But
he can still finish it.
You can still finish. And you know what? I want you to go back, George. This is on record, but that's another question.
All right. Wait, I'm okay. So you think the film is better than the first one?
Yes.
You gave that one a 9.5. You give this one an 8.5. But the reason you bring it down is because of the moral actions.
The moral actions, and I think
immoral actions. Sorry.
No, I think is I like this movie better because it's real. Like it's 100% real, and I think it goes into the complications of what could possibly be because it's open ended. In the first movie, it was about romanticism. It was about speculation. It was about like, and that's what I liked about that movie, and that's why I give it a little bit higher score. But at the end of the day, like I do prefer this one because it's just like it plays at those heartstrings. It like what if, you know, it really goes into those what if moments of like you were in this situation for the
fuck, man, why weren't you there?
You're like like the real emotion. Like I feel like I think we've all had at least moments like that where like, why didn't shit work out the way it needed to? Why couldn't it
whether
work
it was
out?
about a career or something else? Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, George? What's yours rating?
Shit, I'm trying to remember what I gave the last one, but
you give it like an 8.8.
You gave it an 8.5.
8.8.
Yeah.
8.8. I think this one's probably gonna be a little bit lower, mainly just because, I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed this film because of the reality of it, the fucking, just how. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, fuck, like I'm aggravated almost.
It's too real for you?
It's a lot. It's very real. So I feel like that makes it hurt, but also at the same time, I'm like, I feel like that deserves more.
Absolutely does.
I'm willing to give it because I'm like, this is probably what would happen.
So why are you
in
so
real
afraid
life,
to do it?
and also, no, because I hate it. It just hurts differently.
But I think that's why it deserves. You should give it a higher score.
Exactly.
Because what other film has made you feel this way?
In the beginning, I feel like when we
George, you haven't shut up
about
what you wanted to talk about this movie. I've never seen you this passionate.
Before
he's also 7 claws in.
Let him speak. Let him speak.
No. Before we actually discussed about this film, if I would have just gone home and just watched this standalone, seen the first one, and then how things panned out, I would have been fucking livid. I would have been like, I fucking hate this.
I was upset the first time.
But definitely hearing like your guys' perspective on it, everything, it has skewed my perspective a little bit because it gives me a little bit more insight on like, you know, your guys' feelings and how you correlate all those different things. It still doesn't make those feelings go away, but at the same time, I realize, you know, a lot of times when it comes to movies, that's the point. It's supposed to make you feel emotions and certain things, whether they're good emotions where you feel fucking angry or animosity or these different things, is irrelevant because it's like that's the point.
Exactly.
You know, so I definitely feel like I'm gonna give it a decent score from that alone.
So what the fuck is the score, George?
Just like last episode.
I'm still mad. But I did 8.8 last time. I think this one's a little bit higher on there, so I'll give it a 9.
9-0. Wow.
That's
the third one.
That's a good one.
I swear to God, if the third one disappoints me, I don't give a shit. I'm giving a fucking low score. Fuck you guys.
The 2.
I'm like, it better end
you guys
well.
don't skew
the strategy, yeah. I'm like, fuck you guys. I don't care what you say.
Dude, I think you'll honestly. I think the third one gets even more real, and I really love that.
Let's save it for next time. All right, Alexis, what you got?
Straight up, I'll give it a 10, man. Like there's something about this movie that
he puts up there with Scott Pilgrim. It's crazy.
Is this his first 10?
Just like no, but just like that. I don't know. Like maybe I think these type of films like they just grab me more than others, but like it leaves me with the feeling. Like I remember a year or two ago, I was talking to you, Isaac, and I was like, dude, like I don't know, like something's up with me. I just feel like this yearning for something. I feel nostalgic, and I don't know why I've been feeling like this for a week.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was after I saw this film, and it's just like, dude, like the power that this film has on me specifically. I think it's just like kind of like wow, like there's something in me that connects to it on a whole different level.
Yeah, but I think it's just those personal experiences. Again, it goes back to like us. You know, we've lived. You know, we're a little bit closer to their age in this movie when we think about it, you know, because we're all 27.
We're closer to this film than the last one.
So, again, it's like we can relate a little bit better to this one because, you know, we had relationships. We've gone with our careers. We've done, you know, we've traveled a little bit. We become, you know, we become more into ourselves. So I think when we see this movie, and
we're still immature and not fully 100%. For sure,
you know, I say some stupid shit all the time. George says stupid shit.
Every
day, like maybe every 10 minutes.
Every day.
But like it's a connection that, you know, it really like, again, it pulls at our heartstrings. We think about the moral like implications that may or may not happen like between the characters, and you know, and then we put ourselves in those positions. You're like, like how do we react? Like, what would we do? You know.
And again, I think this is what movies are. This is what it's supposed to be. There is magic here between me and whatever Richard Linklater did, Julie Delpy, Ethan Hawke, and you know all the writers, this and that. Like they created something that I hold near.
The chemistry
near my heart.
that they have is spectacular.
And this film will probably always be one of my favorites of all time.
Hopefully AI doesn't top this.
It never will. All right, Nick. Nick, you.
All right. I can't give this a 10 just because you gave it a 10.
Shit.
I'm honestly, you know, it's hard. I'm trying to figure out how to give it a lower score too.
You don't have to. It's okay.
I know.
We saw this trilogy in theaters together.
Go against the grain, Nick.
That was
tell us how you feel.
Dude, I should have gone.
You were invited, but you were fucking busy doing God knows what.
I wasn't invited, by the way.
George, you were a fucking whore at that time, okay?
Yeah, we weren't talking to you at that time. Yeah.
You were being not good. You know how Celine and Jesse kept calling each other hoe and shit like that.
This was during COVID, and then
sure it was.
I was going out too much.
Yeah,
didn't want to be around.
Probably had fucking 3 versions.
All right, Nick.
Yeah,
anyway,
I don't know how you get STDs on your asshole.
You're right. I'll give it a 10.
10. Wow, another 10.
Here's the honest truth about this movie is that this is one of those movies that might have flaws. I mean, there's a lot of people who've talked about different things.
But I think it's the flaws that make this
That's
movie.
What I was gonna say.
Makes it so good.
I feel like this movie is a definition of one of those movies that has perfect imperfections. Where
wow, beautiful.
There's just those aspects of it where it's like
and this isn't your traditional romance movie where like everything works out, like maybe they have like a little battle in the middle.
I think that's why it pisses me off so much.
Well, I think that's
because like you get answers, but not the ones you wanted.
Well, that's what's better than the first one. It's like the first one is really good in like making you fall in love, and this one's making you realize what love really is.
Yeah, I feel
sacrifice.
Like they also leave it open-ended in the first one, where you're like they do end up happy together.
Yeah,
this one is just like no, they're fucking.
Well, and that's where it's like
it's not gonna. It's either they cheat or they end up
George,
together.
Why is everything like they're gonna cheat,
or that she kicks him out of the apartment?
I know, but that's why both of those are unhappy. If you're asking me, like it's like
you're like I just want to cheat.
It's either it's either
but I won't.
He cheats, which is horrible. Or 2, he leaves and he's unhappy in a marriage that he doesn't want to be in with. Both of those scenarios, in my eyes,
or he does
horrible.
what Nick would do.
Or
hey, babe, it's over. All right, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
hey, I said worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you go home.
All right, I did it, babe. What's
no,
up?
Nick, I'm with you. No.
Thank you.
These guys
are gonna
look. In my eyes, those are the only 2 circumstances that happen. It's either he's fucking cheating and it fucking ends horrendously, or he goes back to his unhappy marriage.
Yeah,
both of those fucking.
In a world where infinite possibilities are possible,
there's literally like 4 options. Why are you only considering those 2?
I know.
All right, we keep going in circles.
It's not that black and white. I'm sorry.
But again, just to go back to the review, like I said, there's a lot of more ambiguity. There's a lot of different kind of trade-off or switching off between who's being the more aggressive flirt versus the more passive flirt. There's a lot of kind of, and I think especially at the stage I am in my life right now, where it's like trying to understand, like, you know, don't take life too seriously, don't focus on the big things. Like Alexis literally, like you fucking hit me at one point when I think Jesse was talking about how he's focused too much about his life and like making sure he figures everything out and everything. Like you're too hard on yourself. Like when you achieve one goal,
you're such
like,
a Jesse, Nick.
Like honestly, and like it's like that. This movie speaks to me beyond all of that. Beyond the passion in my relationship and the self-criticism that I have for myself. And I think that I really enjoyed it. And there is things that aren't great about what they do as characters, but that doesn't mean that these aren't real people. As much, but that's the best part is like you're talking about them like they are because that's how real this fucking movie is.
They might be more real than you and me, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it's like shit. It's like
because you know what? At the end of the day, whether we'll see what happens in the third movie, but
God damn it, Isaac.
No, but like
no, but you already know what happens. So you're looking over at me like, yeah, bitch.
No, but you know what? Like you know what? At the end of the day, these people were. I think the reason saying that they're more real is a very honest like review of this movie because they were at the end of the day they were very extremely honest with themselves, and I think sometimes whether it's a situation like this or not, like sometimes I think we do end up getting to that point where like let's be so fucking for real with ourselves and evaluate what's going on. You know
what I think is funny though, like the
George
fact
the hypocrite?
That no, yeah, fuck you, dude. Yeah. The fact that these characters are so willing to be open and honest with one another, but it almost seems like they're not that open and willing to do that in their real lives.
Yeah.
Which blows my fucking mind.
That's why I feel like they actually love each other. Because they can't do it with their real life selves unless they're together.
Or, hear me out.
Wow.
They're willing to be that open and fucking, themselves because it's like, this is someone that's not actually part of my life.
Oh, that's exactly what he fucking said.
Wait, what did you say?
No.
I'm going to keep that in there.
But no, that's what I'm saying is that, in their real lives.
No, I completely tuned them out. Wait, say that again?
You're like, I don't want to hear the Columbia.
Shut the fuck up.
Wait, no,
just make a statement.
George is like, oh, Nick's done talking? Okay, all right.
I'm just waiting for my turn. Hold up.
Asked me.
This is why Ariel was mad at you.
Hey, shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ.
You just asked me in the span of 5 seconds to tell me what I said and then told me to shut the fuck up.
You piece of shit.
I love you, Nick. I'd go to Vienna for you, bro.
Oh, man.
But
this got too real for George.
One last time, what I said was that it's because these people are like that goes to speak about their connection.
Yeah.
They're not like super in each other's lives. They've known each other for literally less than 24 hours.
Okay.
In terms of their total lives, but they can be their full, unadulterated selves with each other more than they can be when they're spouses or long-term boyfriends.
Exactly. No, but like I'm sorry. When you first said it, I thought you meant because they're so in love with each other and infatuated that they can be real.
Damn.
But what I mean is like they don't actually
replay of like what happened before.
I'm gonna cut this out. I'm gonna cut this shit.
They don't know each other that real, so that's why they can be open because it's like they're not in love. They think they are, but it's like.
But remember, both of those don't have to be mutually exclusive.
No, 100%.
They can be both.
I'm sorry. What I heard was that you said that they're in love, where out in their real lives they're not
mutually exclusive.
But that's not what I meant. But
Jesus Christ, George did not pay.
Well, anyways, look, we've already gone much longer than the actual film, and
you know what? But this gives the credit to the film itself.
Exactly.
Because if our viewers
2 hours for
it's like we're almost
for a movie that's only like 8
an hour and 20.
Yeah.
That includes the titles and the credits.
Yeah.
No, God.
Yeah, but I'm just really glad that I was able to introduce these films to you guys, and that you guys have loved them as much as me, or whatever. I'm glad it just touches each of us individually. Yeah. So you want to wrap this up, Nick?
Yeah.
You introed it.
Let's finish off.
Make it short though.
That this is actually one of the largest cumulative scores that we have. We got this. All four of us together is a 9.375, 9.4 rounded up.
Round it up, George.
Guys,
we know how to do math.
This is just a testament to how much we are romantics. And you know what? I think that I'm gonna say it. Just as much as I'm a romantic in my personal life, I love you guys too.
Wow.
We love you too.
We love you, man.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, I'll meet you in Vienna any day.
Exactly.
Any day.
For you boys,
Alexis.
Afterwards,
Hey,
maybe not so much Eddie, but Alexis and Nick for sure.
Ow.
all I want to say is that in Vienna, us four guys, we'd make one film.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. All right,
And speaking of that, find us on Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Email us at 4guys1film@gmail.com.
We'll go out of our way to reply back to you because we don't have that many fans, so we will reply to you.
We have fans. We have fans.
Only mainly friends and family, but we'll take it.
Anyway. 4 of them are us.
Yeah. That's it. All right, that's it, guys.
Thanks,
That's
guys.
a wrap.
We'll talk to you later.